Today, we are exposing 6 frozen fish products in Australian supermarkets that look like a healthy, easy dinner, but behave more like salty, oily, ultra-processed junk, plus 2 frozen options that actually respect your body and your wallet. Stay with me to the very end, because once you see how these brands quietly poison your health goals with cheap fillers, mystery origins, and heavy processing, I will show you simple swaps that let you keep fish night without getting played. We have been told for years that fish is lean, high in omega-3, and heart-healthy, so frozen crumbed fillets from Coles, Woolworths, or Aldi feel like a smart shortcut. But most hide very thin layers of cheap white fish under thick coatings of refined flour, starch, seed oils, and additives. That turns a healthy ingredient into an ultra-processed fat and salt bomb, giving you the calories and oils of junk food without the full nutritional payoff of proper seafood. So let us go through the 6 worst offenders and then the 2 frozen fish options that actually behave like real food. Number 1. Woolworths crumbed fish fillets. When fish feels like a sponge nugget, first up is Woolworths crumbed fish fillet, 425 grams. The classic yellow box home brand option. It is cheap. It is everywhere. It looks like a safe, no-frills staple. But when The Guardian put this exact product through an Australian frozen crumbed fish taste test, the verdict was brutal. They gave Woolworths crumbed fish fillet a score of 4 out of 10 and wrote, "If you blindfolded me, I would guess this was a chicken nugget," and said the gummy texture and slightly chemical taste of the thin layer of fish could easily be confused with low-quality chicken or perhaps a sponge from aisle 9. Think about that for a second. You are buying fish, and professional tasters say it feels and tastes like low-grade chicken nugget filling. Now look at the ingredient list from Woolworths battered fish fillets, 425 grams, which uses the same style of white fish and a similar coating. Alaskan pollock or New Zealand hoki makes up 56%. Then you get water, wheat flour, wheat and maize starch, rice flour, canola oil, maize starch, maltodextrin, milk proteins, beer extract, sunflower oil, yeast extract, salt, thickeners, acidity regulators, and colors. So nearly half of what you are paying for is not fish at all. It is batter, starch, oil, and additives. In the oven or air fryer, here is what that looks like. A thin, anonymous white strip of fish wrapped in a bulky, bready shell, with a texture reviewers describe as gummy and sponge-like, not flaky and clean. The box suggests simple crumbed fish fillets, perfect for family dinners. What it really means is a budget nugget with just enough fish to legally call it seafood, held together by starch, seed oil, and crunch. If that is the go-to fish night in your house, wait until you hear what is going on with Aldi's cheapest crumbed fillets. Number 2, Aldi Ocean Royale Golden Crisp Original Fish Fillets, nuggets pretending to be fillets. At Aldi, one of the most common freezer buys is Ocean Royale Golden Crisp Original Fish Fillets, 425 grams. They are often on special. They look like a bargain. They are marketed as crumbed fish fillets. But in that same Australian taste test, these Aldi fillets scored just 3 out of 10, the worst of the entire lineup. The tasters said the fish is a thin, flavorless layer, buried under a thick, flavorless crumb, with a pasty consistency, like reconstituted scraps of fish, like a cheap chicken nugget. So the product that looks most like a proper fillet on the box behaves in the mouth like a reformed fish paste block. Shoppers in an Australian Facebook group, reported by 7 News, also slammed these fillets, complaining that the pieces are so small they are more like nuggets than fillets, and calling them an absolute rip-off. So why is this a problem? Because in your trolley, you think you are buying a piece of fish with a bit of crumb. What you are really paying for is a thick layer of cheap crumb, a very thin scrap of low-flavor white fish, and portions that have quietly shrunk, leaving you hungry and annoyed. The box suggests golden crisp fillets for classic fish and chips. The reality feels more like budget fish nugget patties in a fillet-shaped costume. And if you thought that was bad, number 3 shows how far some brands will stretch the meaning of whiting fillets, all the way to a factory in China. Number 3, KB's classic crumb. Whiting fillets and whiting bites, made in China. Mystery Mush KB's is a familiar name in Australian freezers. Their classic crumb whiting fillets and whiting bites often pop up on special at Coles and Woolworths. The front of the box talks up southern blue whiting from New Zealand and shows golden, crunchy pieces. But a closer look at the fine print and the way customers describe the texture raises serious questions. On a popular Australian deal site, shoppers dug into the label for KB's Whiting Bites Classic Crumb 300 grams and found that they are made in China with wild-caught southern blue whiting from New Zealand, and that fish content is around 50%, meaning the other half of each bite is crumb, oil, and other ingredients. One commenter joked about free antibiotics, reflecting people's concerns about seafood processed in countries with different regulatory environments. Another asked if it was even real fish, saying the whole thing sounds a bit fishy. Most telling are the cooking experiences. People reported that when they cook them, they taste really weird and oily, and the texture is very mushy, and said they had tried different types of cooking thinking they were doing something wrong, then realized the product itself was the issue. So, in the pan, instead of flaky fillets, you get oil-logged crumb and a soft, paste-like interior that feels more like minced and reformed fish than a whole fillet. The branding suggests classic crumb whiting, Australian pub-style fish and chips at home. What it really means is cheap southern blue whiting blocks, crumbed and processed in China, with a texture many Australian buyers describe as oily and mushy. If that does not make you rethink where your frozen seafood is actually handled, number 4 will. Number 4, Coles frozen crumbed fish fillets, wild caught. But Drowned in Crumb Coles sells bags of frozen fish fillet, crumbed 1 kilogram, and similar original crumbed wild, caught whitefish under its own brand. The marketing leans hard on the positives with phrases like delicious mild white fish fillets in a crispy golden breadcrumb and Marine Stewardship Council certified wild caught. To be fair, the fish itself is from certified sustainable fisheries, but when those same Coles crumbed fillets were put to the test by Australian food writers, they only scored 5.5 out of 10. The tasters said the texture of the fish was surprisingly good, not too mushy and not too dry, and that the crumb had a satisfying crunch and a decent fish-to-coating ratio. However, they also noted that the golden brown crumb suggested a depth of flavour that ultimately did not appear, and one tester said it would probably be tasty enough with lemon and tartar sauce. In other words, by itself, it is bland. Now remember, every extra millimetre of crumb around those fillets is another hit of refined wheat, seed oil and salt, and less actual fish per bite. So why is this a rip-off? Because Coles is trading heavily on words like wild-caught and certified sustainable, while quietly selling you a product where a significant chunk of the weight and calories lives in the breading, and flavour depends heavily on what you add on top. The box suggests a midweek fish dinner made easy, gold standard fish with crunchy crumb. The experience is closer to okay fish locked inside a thick, fairly tasteless shell that you have to rescue with sauce and lemon. If you are going to pay for wild-caught fish, you should taste the ocean, not just the bread. And if you think swapping crumb for batter will solve it, number 5 shows how home brands double down on the same tricks. Number 5, Woolworths battered fish fillets. 56% fish, 44% fried coating. We touched on Woolworths battered fish fillets, 425 grams earlier, but it deserves its own spot on this list. Why? Because it is a perfect example of how an everyday frozen fish product turns a healthy ingredient into ultra-processed junk. The ingredient list is clear. Alaskan pollock or New Zealand hockey makes up 56%. Then come water, wheat flour, wheat starch, maize flour, rice flour, canola oil, maize starch, salt, maltodextrin, milk proteins, beer extract, sunflower oil, yeast extract, thickeners, acidity regulators and colors. So almost half of every piece is batter and additives, not fish. Nutrition information shows a mix of refined carbohydrates, seed oils, and sodium, typical of crumbed and battered convenience foods, which public health research places squarely in the ultra-processed category when eaten regularly. Health researchers warn that regular consumption of ultra-processed foods, especially those fried in seed oils and high in refined starch, is associated with higher risks of weight gain, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other chronic disease when they become a staple. So when you throw a few of these in the air fryer instead of takeaway, what are you actually getting? White fish from the other side of the world, coated in batter that is mostly flour, thickeners, and oil, with a texture critics have already compared to nuggets and sponges in the crumbed version. The front of the pack suggests a family favorite battered fish, just like the local fish and chip shop. Underneath, it reads more like frozen pollock in a fast food-style coating designed to be cheap, crunchy, and addictive, not nourishing. And if you are thinking that you will just buy uncoated fillets and the problem is solved, number 6 shows how even supposedly plain frozen fish can raise eyebrows. Number 6, imported budget fillets, wafer thin, washed out and world-traveled. Not all frozen fish in our freezers is crumbed. A lot of Australians buy plain fillets from discount chains assuming they are the clean option. But this is where sourcing and processing start to matter. Take Aldi's frozen flounder, sold under a private label brand in some markets. Independent reviews note that the fish is imported from China, that the fillets are vacuum sealed, and that each bag contains 4 pieces that are super flat and super thin, even though they are technically large fillets. The reviewer says they smelled fresh and not fishy, but still points out how extremely thin they are and that they are a product of China, which prompted the line, "I guess I had better start checking every product before buying." Or go back to the KB's whiting products we talked about. The label for KB's Whiting Bites Classic Crumb clearly states made in China with wild-caught southern blue whiting from New Zealand, with only 50% fish in each bite. In both cases, you have fish caught in one country, shipped to another for deboning, forming and packaging, and then shipped again to Australia to sit in a freezer. Every extra step lengthens the time between sea and plate, increases the chances of quality loss, and depends on foreign factories you will never see. On forums, Australian shoppers have started to say things like, "I guess I had better start checking every product before buying," and have asked whether it is even real fish, saying that some of these products sound a bit fishy. Others warn that when they cook some imported fillets and bites, they taste really weird and oily, and the texture is very mushy. So even when there is no crumb, no batter, and no sauce, you still need to ask, where was this fish actually processed? How thin is it? Does it still look and smell like fresh fish when you open the bag? The bags suggest convenient, healthy, ready-to-cook fillets. In too many cases, what you are really getting is world-traveled, ultra-thin fish portions that many Australian buyers say feel weak, washed out and strange in the pan. At this point, it should be clear. This is not just about one bad brand. It is a whole frozen fish system built on cheap species, long supply chains, thick coatings, and very thin fillers. So where do you go if you actually want the benefits of seafood without the junk? Now let us talk about the frozen fish that is actually worth your time. You do not have to give up frozen fish. You just have to stop rewarding the worst offenders. Let us look at 2 options and a simple rule that line up with real food principles. Safe pick number 1, I&J original crumb fish fillets, wild-caught snap frozen. No artificial junk. I&J has been in Australian freezers for decades, but not all of their products are equal. One of the better options is I&J fish fillets, original crumb 550 grams, sold at Woolworths and Coles. According to Woolworths, these fillets are made from wild-caught white fish fillets, filleted and snap frozen at sea, certified by the Marine Stewardship Council. A good source of protein and omega-3, with no added preservatives and no artificial colors or flavors. That does not magically make them a health food. They are still crumbed and should be an occasional meal. But compared to nugget-style products, there are some key upgrades. You get actual fillets, not reformed fish paste. They are snap frozen on the boat, which helps lock in freshness. You have certified sustainable sourcing, so you are not blindly supporting overfishing. The crumb has no artificial colors or added preservatives. If you must have crumbed fish ready to go, this is far closer to the best of a bad category than the sponge-like home brands. Safe pick number 2. Plain flathead or whiting fillets that you crumb yourself. If you want to get serious about protecting your health, the best move is simple. Buy plain frozen fillets from a reputable brand, then season and crumb them yourself at home. I&J, the finest frozen South Atlantic flathead fillets, are one example. They are sold as uncoated, boneless fillets and marketed as a good source of protein and omega-3, with a mild, slightly sweet flavor that works well with simple seasoning. The product description even suggests that you coat them yourself with breadcrumbs, polenta, flour, or dried herbs. That does a few important things for you. You control the oil so you can use olive oil or butter instead of deep frying in seed oil. You control the crumb, or skip it entirely and just pan fry with lemon and herbs. You see the actual fish, its color, thickness, and smell before you eat it. Compare that to crumbed blocks made in China from 50% fish and 50% other ingredients. Same freezer, completely different relationship to real food. The 10-second frozen fish label test. Next time you are in Coles, Woolworths, or Aldi, flip every box of frozen fish and ask 3 questions. What percentage is fish? Under 60% fish means you are mostly paying for batter, crumb, oil, and air. Where was it processed? Labels that say, made in China from New Zealand fish or similar wording mean a long, complex supply chain. Phrases like filleted and snap frozen at sea are a much better sign. Is this a fillet or a formed portion? Words like portions formed from pieces of fillet or nugget-like textures in reviews point to reconstituted fish mash, not whole fillets. If a product fails 2 or more of those checks, it does not belong in a trolley that is trying to protect your health. Final message and call to action. Fish should be one of the cleanest proteins in your week. A fillet, some salt, a bit of lemon and olive oil. That is it. But the frozen aisle in Australian supermarkets has turned that simple food into something else entirely. Thin layers of anonymous white fish, buried under crumb and batter, processed in factories you will never see, shipped across oceans, fried in seed oils and dressed up as a healthy choice. We drifted from real fish and chips to fish-style nuggets that even professional tasters say could be mistaken for chicken or sponge. You do not have to stop buying frozen fish. You just have to ditch the worst offenders, choose products with more fish than crumb, shorten the supply chain where you can, and when possible, buy plain fillets and do the simple bits yourself. If this video helped you see what is really hiding inside those golden boxes in the freezer, tap like so more Australians can protect their plate from toxic frozen fish traps. If you want more deep dives that protect your health and your family from the tricks hiding in Australia's supermarket aisles, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. That is how we keep making the videos the big brands do not want you to see. Now tell me in the comments, which one shocked you the most? The sponge-like Woolworths fillets, the nugget-style Aldi fish, or the made-in-China whiting bites? And what is your next move? Switching to snap frozen fillets, learning to crumb your own, or finally breaking up with home brand frozen fish for good?